state has been on a trajectory of resetting Ghana's economy from a governance, from an economic, and from a development perspective. What does that mean? Today, we're going to unpack the State of the Nation's address delivered by His Excellency John Dramani Mahama yesterday before Parliament. And I have with me in studio Abel and Solowin and Modiok. Abel, you're welcome.
Thank you very much.
And I also have joined me online Dr. Felix Larry Silfi, who is a development economist and the executive director of IDER. Dr. Silfi, you're welcome.
Thank you for having me, sir.
Yes. So let me just start with Dr. Silfi. I mean, I'm very sure you actively followed the State of Nations address yesterday. First, let me find out what your general impressions of the address was.
Okay, so good morning once again, and good morning to your cherished listeners and viewers on your various social media handles. Yes, you are right. Yesterday, I found myself at home, not engaged in anything, and so I had the privilege of following the president with his presentation of the SONA for the 2026. Is it Attakora, please?
No, Attakora Dwomoh.
Sorry, Attakora, yes. So Attakora, yes. Yesterday, first of all, it was a constitutional duty that the president ought to have performed, and he did just that. Looking at his presentation, you could see that, as far as I am concerned, everything that he presented there was on point, except some few things that are more or less still sound like promises. But in terms of the economy, we all know, can testify that the inflation is below 5%, specifically it's around 3.8%. Food inflation is also less than 5%, and specifically it is 4.6%, I think so. And you can see that over the years, food inflation has been the driving force behind our skyrocketing inflation. And so, significantly, it being less than 5% tells you that something huge has happened. In fact, that has actually caused the core inflation to come down significantly. Energy, there's so much to be done. The president himself, testified to that. And he actually outlined the kind of key policies and programs that are actually in place to ensure that we achieve some sort of a more efficient energy system for industrial takeoff and also for domestic consumption. In terms of the economy, again, interest rate is around 19-18% thereabouts. When they took over, it was above 30%. And so you can see that the economy, everybody can testify that the numbers speak for itself. In terms of, the exchange rate, you could see that they picked it from 14.9% as at the time they were taking over. Now it is around 10%. In fact, in the early part of the year, somewhere January, the city weakened a little bit and we got to 11%, but we have come back to the 10% trajectory. And so you could see that is benefiting us as far as our economic structure is concerned, because Ghana has been an import-driven economy. And so most of the inflation was actually being driven by the import kind of situation that we found ourselves in. And so with the exchange rate stability, you could see that there has been relatively stabilized economic system for businesses to plan, for households also to plan, and that has put indirectly a lot of money in the pocket of households and even business and even investors. And so the economy is good. In terms of governance, we can all see how peaceful the economy, the governance environment has been. People can now express themselves without being back. go around so peacefully, unlike I myself was a victim. I remember I did some sort of a lot of my colleagues who are also economic commentators also had similar issues. But I must testify personally, I don't know of my colleagues, but personally, when this government came to office, media platforms have had the opportunity to critique them where I need to critique. And I have done so with that nobody will come after me, or I wouldn't receive any form of threatening messages and all of that. And so, as far as the governance is concerned, I think it's for this reason that unanimously our president has been, unopposedly nominated by colleagues around the African continent to lead the AU 2027.
Yeah.
So you can see that even outside our own government circles, other countries see Ghana as a peaceful and politically stabilized kind of country, and that has also increased, investment influence. If you look at, you can check the data from the Ghana Investment Promotion Council or Authority. You will see that foreign direct investment through PIN has gone up significantly, and it also showed even in the budget and then yesterday's presentation made by the president himself.
So in essence, you think that the State of Nations address presented yesterday reflects the reality in Ghana? That's your thought in essence?
Come again, sir.
I'm saying that, so in essence, you think that the State of Nations address, which was given yesterday by His Excellency, it reflects the current reality in the country?
Of course, but if you recall, I made a little exception. So if, for want of time, let me just talk about the exceptions that I had.
We'll come in to look at the specifics, Doctor. We'll come in to look at the specifics of the State of Nature, but this was just your general impression.
Okay.
Okay. So let me turn to Mabel. Let me find out from you, generally, what were your thoughts before going to the specifics of the...
Yeah, thank you. And good morning once again. Yes, I think that the State of the Nation address by President John Dramani Mahama was very comprehensive. It covered the progress that the country is making, and also where relevant, I think he admitted of some of the challenges. That candor, I think, on the issue of cocoa, for example, he admitted the challenges that they were having and having to take very painful decision that they have taken to cut prices, which ordinarily government would have not done. They would have maybe sought to borrow to cushion the farmers, and then later on, maybe you have to deal with those debts that are piling up. But in admitting that, he said that is not the way he wants to go, because you are just coming out from a situation, and then you want to go back to go and borrow to cushion people. And then at the end of the day, that cyclical downward spiral that our economy has been operating around will keep going. So for him, that was not the way to go. So that was one of the departures that I saw, in the State of the Nation address, where a president has to admit that this is difficult, we have to do this, and I have taken the decision, and the buck stops with me. Yeah. If things don't go well, I'm the one to blame. If you look at, in terms of governance, he said this year's independence celebration is going to be around the theme of building prosperity and restoring hope. He calls that the blueprint under which his administration is basically operating around, under which we have, he has two concepts underpinning it, the Resetting Ghana agenda and then Accra Reset. And you see that the Resetting Ghana agenda is domestically. So domestically, fiscal consolidation, discipline, trying to manage the macroeconomy in a way. The economist just spoke. He mentions that the data look good. If you look at inflation, exchange rate, interest rate, among others, that is good for the economy. As to the other few challenges within the system. People have talked about rising cost of living. It doesn't have to do with only petroleum prices and food prices, but if you look at even in the space of rent, for example, which is a major issue, housing issue, rent is still going up, and a lot of people are complaining. It's a significant issue. I think if you look at utilities too, people are complaining. Even in Accra, I think some parts of the country, they've been experiencing a lot of water challenges, among others. And electricity bills recently has become a huge conversation on social media, with many complaining about the increases. So those are some domestic issues and challenges that he also highlighted. I think he highlighted something. He talked about the inefficiencies of ECGs over the past years, where they were unable to meet some of their obligations, but now they are tightening some of those loopholes and seeking to ensure that they are current on most of their energy commitments to their partners within the energy sector. So if you looked at the domestic space, the conversation that he seeks to push out there, I think reflects the very conversations that we are having in our system. The Accra Reset, basically Ghana's position within the international space. So he's saying basically that Ghana cannot operate on its own. If you look at Africa itself, countries within Africa cannot operate on their own, because you are too small within the system to survive on your own. So we need to work together. And working together also means that Africa must become self-reliant. And he speaks about it and also says that, for example, you can't just think that you want to change that narrative and go scot-free. Already, by pushing that narrative already, there are some sanctions that some African countries are undergoing. So it means that it will come with some challenges which you must confront head on if you want to survive. And so you see that the president has, in terms of vision, in terms of governance, he has two approaches. One is domestic, one is international. The international one admits that Ghana cannot survive on its own without its partners on the African continent and within the West African sub-region. So you have to position yourself well and align well so that you can survive on that front. And also, if you get your things right within your domestic economy for your people to build prosperity. So overall, I think it was a very comprehensive overview of the challenges and the progress that the country is making. And of course, there are some issues that we can disagree with the president on as we go on. Maybe those things will come up, but overall, it was a very comprehensive one.
Right, absolutely. I've also been joined online by Dr. Evans Nunu, who is a leadership and governance expert. Dr. Nunu, good morning. Hello, Dr. Nunu, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me, please?
Yes, I can hear you now. Thank you very much. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
Right, so we're just having a conversation, or we just started on the State of Nations address, and I'm checking the general impressions, or your general impression of the State of Nations address. Is this something you think reflects our reality, or you think it was just some package story being given to us as Ghanaians?
Well, I think that the address was specific to our issues. It's a reflection of the realities on the ground. And it's a genuine expression of how Ghana is moving, where we came from, and the situation at hand. What is quite impressive is that it borders on the basic questions of examining life or a journey, because of course you ought to know where you are coming from, where you are, and that will inform where you are going. So, and that is exactly what happened. So I think it was a good thing. The address was solid, and it didn't deviate from the realities on the ground. That is my general impression. And for me, it tagged on key aspects of the economy, highlighting how we are going to work some things out to change the narrative about the structural aspect of the economy. And then the almighty 24-hour was tackled, except that I have few reservations. There are some things I thought could be highlighted as well.
Absolutely.
Then,
We'll go into those specifics.
yes. And then there was a bit about food inflation and how we are faring, because that had been a major concern, and I had always had concerns about that. And of course, job creation and the way forward. So in general, I think it was a good address, and the president and his team must be commended for such a solid address.
Right. I mean, as part of His Excellency's speech, he was very emphatic about Ghana being back and open for business. We're going to just play a very short clip on it, and when we're done, we would have a short conversation on it.
All right.
I promised then that just as I have confronted and overcome crisis in the past, I'll reset our economy and return us to a path of growth, progress, and development. Mr. Speaker, I told this August House then, when I appeared before you last year, that we would have to take tough, prudent, and necessary decisions to restore stability and credibility. Today, Mr. Speaker, I can say to you with confidence, Ghana is back. Ghana is working again. And Ghana is open for business. The fundamentals are improving, and the path to sustained acceleration is very clear to everyone. From the outset, we resolved.
Right, so we had His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, who mentioned that Ghana is open for business and investment. But he mentions also the fact that we'll have to take some very tough decisions. And Dr. Esivio, I'll come to you on some of these tough decisions government has taken. First, in the cocoa sector. You'd see from the State of Nations address that even the minority came to Parliament with cocoa pots, lamenting on behalf of the cocoa farmers that they are in a very miserable state. Let me find out from you what your take is on that.
Okay, so as for the minority, it is expected of them because they are opposition party and they are seeking for an opportunity to come back to government. So one shouldn't be surprised of their actions. But the point is that the decision taken by this particular government as far as the cocoa sector is concerned, I agree with them 100%. Because you see, every profit-oriented organization will always take decisions that will be to the benefit of the entity rather than, being detrimental to their organization. At the time NPP were in office, I think in the latter part, I stand to be correct, cocoa price for 1 metric ton was around 8,000 thereabouts. Now, the 8,000, we all know that 16 of the 64 kilo bags of cocoa constitute 1 metric ton. Now, per the act and the regulation governing the cocoa price and issues, whatever market price that the government gets, they have to divide it into three and give the producer, in this case the farmer, two-thirds of that.
Yeah.
And so at that time, if you divide 8,000 by 3, two-thirds of that should be around, let's say, 5,000 to 6,000. I stand to be correct. So it wasn't exactly that; it was 8,000 plus. Now, so you could see that it was actually prudent for the opposition, then in this case the current administration, to argue that the president or the government at that time should have given or should have done better in terms of giving a fair price to the producers, in this case the farmers. Now, as we speak, according to Reuters, cocoa price at the world market for 1 metric ton is around 4,000 something. And so, two-thirds of that is going to be around 2,000 plus, if I stand to be corrected, because I'm not actually doing a real calculation here. So if at 8,000, you were giving the farmers 3,000 something, which is far below the two-thirds, and at 4,000, the person is giving 2,000 something, which is exactly the two-thirds. Then you could see that the opposition or the minority have no key. So the decision taken by the government is very fair. And I think the farmers who are quite informed really understand what is going on. So as far as I'm concerned, it is a tough decision that ought to be taken rather than borrowing to cushion the farmers or to please the farmers, giving them a price that is actually unrealistic. And later we come back and it becomes an albatross on our neck as a debt that we ought to pay. So one of the tough decisions that the government, as far as the president's presentation is concerned yesterday, I think it's in the cocoa sector. And for me, I commend them for that. Because for once as a country, we need to be realistic in our decision making. And we don't have to politicize every economic decisions that we take as a country, because it will come back and haunt us in future. And so what they have done, I think what they need to do is to educate the farmers very, very well in terms of the dynamics of the world market prices and how it affects, the cocoa farmer and then even the government itself. I think one part that the government, for me...
But Dr. Silfi, is the problem solely a world price problem, or there's also an institutional mismanagement problem, which now, has championed these huge losses, but it looks like government is just shifting it onto the world price issue, because the prices of cocoa, even though yes, there's been a dip, it's not been that significant to cause them this huge loss as they are experiencing.
It is significant, but I will not argue your point. I will not argue against your point that there is an institutional failure as well. And that is where I was actually coming to. Over the years, government after government have not done well in managing the cocoa sector. Look, I have a background in agriculture economics, and I have done some work for the cocoa board for some years now. And I've realized that even the staff constitution in the cocoa board or in the cocoa sector is highly inefficient. As a fact, there are so many activities that can be performed with technology, but you will see manual kind of operation going in there. And there are positions that one person can handle because of politics. We feed in more than one person to handle that particular task. So even the decision of the government to slash the salaries of officials over there, I think, in my opinion, is highly inefficient. And it is not the prudent way to go by. We need to downsize the staff, load over there to ensure that we streamline our staffing capacity and improve efficiency. These days, technology is far advanced. We need to leverage on technology, improve efficiency, and ensure that the institutional backlogs or bottlenecks are adequately addressed in that particular regard. But in terms of on a scale, we can't say that the world market price dynamics is not significant. In fact, it is actually the leading cause of whatever situation we find ourselves in. And I would say that the tough decisions taken by government and they have brought the institutional issues and also managing the cocoa price dynamics in the country. That's my humble opinion.
Right. Hello, Dr. Siri, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, but there's also been calls on the fact that cocoa currently is in a state of monopoly, where we have just cocoa board being the main player, as opposed to leaving the buying and selling of cocoa in Ghana to competitive prices or to competitive trading. Indeed, I've seen some research which has shown that compared to about 55% of proceeds which are received by cocoa farmers here, their counterparts in some other countries where there's competitive pricing receive sometimes 75 to 80%. Now, don't you think that this era of having, or the era of having just cocoa board being the only player as the buyer and seller of cocoa in Ghana is long overdue, and that we would have to scrap it and go to competitive trading in cocoa?
I disagree to that particular assertion. And I don't know how those research were done. But you see, cocoa, just like gold, is a national treasure and it's a leading export earning commodity for the country. Let me just digress a little bit and use the case study of gold.
Yeah.
What you are saying, the gold market was a
hello, Dr. Esiri, can you hear me? I think we are losing you. Hello, Dr. Esiri?
And the fact that the government was not getting much from, from gold. Now, the inception of Gold Board has taught us a huge lesson that if we centralize the buying and selling of gold in our economic system, it stands to benefit more, and therefore our revenue will benefit. And remember, Gold Board, the concept of Gold Board was borrowed from the Cocoa Board. So the assertion that we have to scrap Cocoa Board and leave the market open for open market efficiency and all of that, it will increase smuggling. It will actually allow foreigners to infiltrate into our economy and then be buying the cocoa and smuggle it out of the country as the gold market used to be, until Gold Board actually came into the scene for us to see the real benefit that we are all enjoying now. So I think the Cocoa Board has been a very good tool for government to be able to manage the cocoa sector. The issue here is the politicization of that particular board over the years. Maybe I will agree with people who call for some sort of semi-autonomy kind of thing for the sector. We can try that particular model and see that if we grant Cocoa Board some sort of semi-autonomy and ensure that the appointment of CEOs is done on merit, on meritocracy rather than, affiliation and all of that, maybe that would be more helpful than do it, when government comes.
But on a merit-based system, how is that going to work? The appointment of the CEO?
Hello?
Yes, Dr. Sivri, I'm asking that you are saying that we should think of creating a semi-autonomous system in the Cocoa Board institution, where you are proposing that we can decide to appoint the CEO on a merit-based system. And I'm asking that, how is that going to work, or how would that be done?
Hello, Attakora.
Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
Hello?
Yes, Dr. Esiri. Okay, I think Dr. Esiri's line has gone bad. I'll just...
Yeah, I'm here. I'm here now.
Okay.
I'm here now. I lost you. You were asking what?
I was asking that you propose that we should, as a reform, we should think of having Cocoa Board operate on a semi-autonomous system. And you are suggesting that we can appoint a CEO on a merit-based system. And I'm asking that, how is that going to work? Are you suggesting we take the appointment from the presidency, or how should that work?
Yeah, so what I'm saying is a proposal that we need to try and see. Look, any strategic kind of institution in a country like Ghana, where we allow politicians absolute right to appoint and fire, we all know historically, our history tells us that we have not achieved the best. Except this government that has come into the scene that it has a slogan of resetting, where we are seeing certain bold decisions being taken dispassionately. We have not been successful in allowing politicians. I can give you several institutional examples. ECG is one of them. So we need to, have a way of ensuring that we appoint the right hands to be there. I don't have any problem if we still allow the politicians to be there, but can we enact some sort of act, that will guide government government as a government in terms of how they should appoint, but it wouldn't be like who contributed more in the campaigning kind of season, and therefore we have to reward the person. You understand? Because most of the time, look, appointing a CEO, we need to ensure that the person has an agribusiness background or agriculture economics background. We can't run away from that. Because you need to understand the production process of the commodity you are coming to manage. If you have no idea, forget about executive MBA, what have you. That one will not wash. Because that particular sector, you need to be technically efficient, resource efficient, and you have some sort of some high level of economic efficiency, technical efficiency, resource use efficiency, and then economic efficiency. And that will come from an angle where whoever is appointed to man that particular project has a background in agribusiness and agricultural economics. That is fundamental, because the person will also be able to lead a research, in that particular angle to ensure that proper policies and programs are put in place to safeguard that particular sector. But if we allow politicians, or we just make it an appointment based on political kind of affiliation sake, we don't give merit to who actually deserves to be there, and we appoint and then fire at any time because the person then maybe is not actually pursuing our bid. We're not going to get anywhere. So I am only proposing a model where we need to think dispassionately, comprehensively, to see how best can we get the right people over there. Number two, we should get somebody who is also ready to embrace technology, because the cocoa marketing sector now, this time AI that have come can even help you make forecasting and projections for the next 5-10 years, for you to be able to know the policies and actions you need to put in place to be able to achieve a very efficient objective or efficient kind of landmark for the sector. So my proposal, I've not researched over it, but I'm just calling for an efficiency in the appointment sector, or in terms of appointment, and also getting the right team in place to ensure that the right things are done at the right time. So whatever we are facing now is an accumulation of mistakes that we have made, over the years, government after government, and that is what has brought us this far. For example, I have argued the use of PBCs, over the years. My colleagues there can disagree, but I've been on the field and I know what the PBCs and how the PBCs operate.
But for the sake of our listeners, can you tell us what the PBCs are?
That is the produce buying company, private ones.
Yeah.
You understand? Just like Gold Board. Let me give you an example. Just like Gold, Gold Board has issued licenses to buy it. And then they buy the gold from the miners and then give it to Gold Board for it to be. I mean, the same model. But for whatever reason, the cocoa sector, we have not been able to manage it well. Maybe Sami JP has a way of handling, or it is early days yet. That is why we are not seeing the same challenges around Gold Board. But the same model is also being used by Gold Board. And for whatever reason, for 1 year, we are seeing some results. Why can't we achieve the same results with these PBCs over the years? There is something that we need to research into and get to the bottom of it and address it. But I will call that whatever reform that government has outlined, I hope they researched it very, very well. And therefore, they did not bring out this sort of outline of actions that to be taken that they intend to take based on some sort of feelings or what they think. But they took these policy actions or these reform programs, on the basis of empirical reason or empirical research findings. And therefore, they are putting across this sort of reform mechanism. But if it is based on political or maybe for fear that the opposition will lambast them, and so they have to quickly put something in place, that will be a knee-jerk reaction, and it's not going to end anywhere. So whatever reform that we are pursuing, I've said it on another media platform that government should slow down, try and research, get empirical facts before they can actually put any reform out there. But so far, what they have put there, on the hand side, we can say that something positive is being done. We need to research everywhere about the cocoa sector, the buying, the selling, the exporting, and everything. I think we need to do a comprehensive work in that regard.
Okay, thank you. In fact, I have a very short clip on cocoa, the president's speech on the cocoa industry. I think we'll just take a listen to it. Then I'll come to Abel, where I'll take his thoughts on whether the cocoa board should be scrapped. I think Dr. Isifi argues that it shouldn't be scrapped. He thinks that there should be just some amendments to the appointments. But I know there's been a lot of calls, especially in the wake of these cocoa problems we are having, that cocoa board being a single player in the industry is also a huge problem affecting the cocoa farmers. So let's just take a listen to the president in State of Nations address on the cocoa industry.
Inherited what Ghana's credibility is restored. Ghana is rising. The heaviest burden we inherited was the very high inflation rate, which was silently eroding every household's purchasing power. It peaked at 54.1% at the end of 2022, and it declined to 23.5% by the end of 2024. Mr. Speaker, we treated this with urgency. Through fiscal consolidation, currency stabilization, and disciplined monetary policy, inflation fell from 23.5% at the end of 2024 to 3.8%. Mr. Speaker, inflation fell from 23.5% at the end of 2024 to 3.8% over 13 consecutive months by January 2026. Mr. Speaker, and very interesting, food inflation, which had been the main driver of the upward pressure on inflation, fell by 26.6 percentage points. Inflation for locally produced goods fell by 22.6 percentage points. Mr. Speaker, these are not just statistics. These translate into the reality of a parent being able to put food on the table for their children. It translates into the reality of businesses thriving and creating opportunities for Ghana's young people.
I think that was just a short mix there, but we'll get the actual clip and play it. But let me turn to you, Mabel. On the cocoa sector, currently cocoa farmers are complaining bitterly. It's been a very huge issue for them on these cuts, and a lot of talks are on the inefficiencies of the cocoa board, and the calls for the fact that let's put cocoa purchase and buy into competitive pricing so that the farmers also can benefit from. Because in fact, previously, where we think of cocoa farmers as the richest, today that is not necessarily the case. There are lots of incentives even supposed to get to cocoa farmers, but it never gets to them.
Thank you very much. So I think that those are some of the inefficiencies within the system that you are talking about that needs to be addressed. But I pin everything to leadership and governance at the top. Because if we say that we must be appointing technical people to every position, then I'm sure that maybe the president himself will not deserve to be to be the president, because he's a communicator. So maybe somebody will ask, what has a communicator got to do with becoming the president of Ghana? I think at the top of every institution, it's about leadership decisions. And the president yesterday was very clear on that. He said that the buck stops with him. So if there are challenges, it is up to the president to deal head on with those challenges. And that is why we saw an emergency cabinet meeting. Cocoa Board is now under the finance ministry. It used to be under the Ministry of Food and Agriculture. And the reasoning behind the government decision in taking Cocoa Board from that to Ministry of Finance was that the challenges were financial. Cocoa Board was struggling with its finances and the way it was borrowing to run the organization.
Yeah.
So they needed, the finance ministry's argument, they needed to check Cocoa Board. And that is why they brought Cocoa Board under the finance ministry. Who is managing the finance ministry? He's an economist, he's a finance person. He's the one overseeing it. So I don't think that the idea of maybe the current CEO of Cocoa Board maybe doesn't have direct. He's not a cocoa farmer, or he's not. I don't think that was. It's a leadership problem.
Oh, so you think that the semi-autonomous proposal by Dr. Sifi should not necessarily be the case? We can still leave the appointment to president.
Yes, I don't think.
But if somebody says that, how about having the CEO of Kokobo who understands the real concerns on the ground? I suppose somebody who is just brought somewhere and say exercise leadership.
I don't think right now, as we are speaking, people don't understand the plight of the cocoa farmer. We all do. I'm not a cocoa farmer.
No, I'm not a cocoa farmer, so I may just understand it in theory.
No. If your pricing is somewhere around 3,500, and all of a sudden you wake up the next day, which you've planned for the whole year, is the cocoa season, and you know that this is what you are going to be getting until the next window, and all of a sudden about 1,000 cedis or 1,100 cedis is taken from you. You don't need to be a cocoa farmer to know that is very painful. It's like your salary. If you are taking a salary of 7,000 and then management come to you and tell you that from next week going, we can't pay, from next month we can't pay you 7,000, but we are going to be paying you 4,000. Do you need to be in that working position to know how it feels?
But if I'm in that working position, I will feel it. This time I'll just don't know.
I think that we all feel it. We all understand the cocoa farmer and the cocoa farmer's plight. We don't need to play politics with it. I think that's something Dr. Asifi said. There's no politics about it. This is something that we've seen the prices drop. Government had to take a decision. The decision was whether to borrow, because Cocoa Board doesn't have money. So do you borrow and cushion the cocoa farmers by keeping the price there, or you reduce the price and so that you don't borrow and come and then give Cocoa Board the same burden that they are trying to run away from? Because Cocoa Board's books are burdened with debt. They are running away from debt, and then you want to borrow and bring it in money to sustain what they are already running away from. That, I think, is a no-brainer. So the issues we are discussing is not about people not understanding what cocoa farming entails, what chemicals they need, what they need, weather boots and things to. That is not the conversation. I think on any other day, if that was a general conversation, we can have it. But the issue at Cocoa Board now is finances. It's purely financial issues. Money. Does Cocoa Board have money? Is the government willing to borrow again? Since, I think, 2023, Cocoa Board has not.
But why should why did they run into those financial issues?
Cocoa Board used to run with syndication loans. We are in the country. You know, those days they are there when the year is about ending. They get 1 billion or some millions of dollars, and then they pump it into the system, and that stopped because of the challenges they were facing. And so since then, Cocoa Board has not been able to go back to the international market to borrow money. So governments have had to find ways internally to finance Cocoa Board. So I think the reset that we are calling, it's a good thing. We are in a reset agenda. So everything is, we are calling for a reset. Governments can sit down and look at the cocoa sector. Maybe there can be a national forum. Bring the cocoa farmers together, stakeholders in the cocoa industry, the finance people. Let's sit down and see. Maybe if there's a need to rethink the way Cocoa Board is being administered. If that decision is made, I think, and the government has done a lot of such forums from the beginning. There was a National Economic Forum, there was National Education Forum. So if there's a need for that, we can go on that tangent. But I think that the Cocoa Board issues, the president has taken responsibility. He says the buck stops with him. He's taking responsibility for what is happening. He's taking responsibility for the decisions that he has taken. Let's wait maybe a year later when we come back and see whether the decisions that he has taken are yielding the fruits that he envisioned, or are going, maybe they are not yielding the positives that they envisioned. Then we can criticize. But for now, a decision has been taken. And the government has a mandate of the people to take decisions. So that decision, if the president has not taken any decision, then we can be judging, on what is the way forward. But he has taken a decision now. That decision is to cut the prices. That decision is also to clear the arrears that they were owing farmers. That decision is also to find, that is why they brought in the policy statement recently that they brought, that they want to show reserves among others and other things, and then also create funds in the sinking fund enough so that some of these particular challenges at any point in time when they are dealing with them, then they have a way to see how they can give reprieve to some of these farmers, you know. So the decisions have been taken, policy actions have been put in place. If they don't yield a fruitful results, then we can discuss them. Maybe another day we can be discussing the decisions that have been taken, whether they are efficient, they are genuine, they can address the challenges within the cocoa sector. But for now, those decisions have been taken, and we'll have to see what results those decisions will yield. And for me, I don't have anything to add to the cocoa conversation. I think the president accepted the realities that the people, everybody, I mean, I've seen people talk cocoa areas. There have been videos, conversations with cocoa farmers, and I see the concerns that are being raised. And for me, I was saying, I'm a farmer in different things, and I don't need somebody to tell me when you've planned your budget and you know that this is what you're going to be receiving for a year, and all of a sudden about 20 or 30% of that is being taken out. It's a painful thing.
Yeah.
You know, and we don't need to be in there to know, you know. So let's see how the fiscal measures that have been put in place will yield results. And maybe when they yield results, the cocoa farmer will enjoy better, you know. But for now, it's a painful decision, and the government has taken responsibility for it, and we can only wait and see the outcome, or we can keep discussing government decision and whether it is a right decision or not. But even yesterday, you look at Ivory Coast, I'm told that tomorrow, which is 1st March, their prices have reduced, and it's going to be ranging in Ghana cedis from 950 thereabout to about 1,100 or 1,200. That is, so it means that in Ghana, the cocoa farmer is taking about 2 or almost 3 times what farmers in Ivory Coast will be taking. But again, maybe the economic conditions are not the same. In Ivory Coast, the economic context might be different. If somebody has 1,000 cedis, maybe that person's living standard,
purchasing power may
be different. But if we want to look, because that was the conversation initially, that Ivory Coast is not reducing its pricing. Why is Ghana reducing its pricing? Now, here it is. So it means that globally is a challenge for almost all cocoa producing countries. But for the conversations about resetting cocoa board and other things, I think we can have that conversation later. But yesterday, zooming from the entire conversation around the cocoa industry, I think I was a bit okay with it. Not okay. Maybe some people were expecting the president would have said, okay, maybe we've heard the cries of cocoa farmers, we'll revert to the old pricing or something. But he stuck to the gun. He said, it's my decision. If anything goes wrong, hold me accountable. And I think that is accountable leadership. You know, he didn't say, let's hold the CEO accountable, let's hold the Minister of Finance accountable. He says, it stops with me. So if anything, he must pay the ultimate price. And for me, that is leadership.
Right. Let me turn to Dr. Nunu. I mean, on the conversation of the cocoa industry and how our actions the actions of cocoa board and the general world issues have affected them. Hello, Dr. Nunu, can you hear me? Dr. Nunu? Okay, I think I might have lost Dr. Nunu. Let me come back to now the issue of inflation. Dr. Sifri.
Attakora,
yes.
Quickly, let me make 1 or 2 points as far as the cocoa board is concerned in conclusion.
Okay, Dr. Sifri.
I believe there is a reason for which Ghana has never appointed somebody in communication into the finance ministry as the finance minister. I believe there is a reason for which some strategic sectors you need somebody more or less a technocrat to man the affairs of that particular area. Leadership, as my colleague said, falls under who is at the helm of affairs. If the person understands the scope of the sector he or she is manning, then leadership can be shown. I don't have any problem if the president will appoint whoever is supposed to be there. But you cannot appoint somebody who doesn't even know the resource mobilization for the production of that particular commodity that they are dealing with. And that is why, in the wisdom of universities and, in the field of trade, a program like agribusiness came into the scene. In the olden days, we could have, assumed that once you hold management, or you have some leadership qualities, you command everywhere. But there is a reason for which we never appoint, a communication expert or an agriculturist to go and man the affairs of finance ministry. You need to have somebody who has a background either in accounting, in finance, or in economics to be there. And then again, the president doesn't need to be, because he's going to head multi-sectorial kind of field or a sector. In this case, I am taking the economy as a sector. So you don't expect the president to be a finance expert, become an agriculturist or whatever. He is like a coach. So the onus lies on him to find the right people who have the technical know-how to man the affairs of various sectors within the economy. So we need to be very careful about that particular place. Leadership, I agree, 150%. But that leadership will come from somebody who really understands the area he or she is going to manage. For example, cocoa board. We know that they even imported sacks when they did not need it. Meanwhile, farmers at that time were crying for chemicals to spray on the trees to prevent pests from attacking the crops. If we were to have people who understand resource mobilization, resource use efficiency in that particular sector, I don't think such a person will be that heartless to embark on such, a business venture by importing items that the sector did not need in the first place. All this is borders in leadership. But leadership will come after the person, first of all, has some level of specialty in the area. So, my brother, I agree with your leadership concept. I don't also dispute if the president still has to appoint. But I disagree if you say that if the president is a communicator, so if we have to talk about technical know-how, then there's somebody, he qualifies. Because he doesn't need to be a finance expert. He doesn't need to be, an engineer to head, to understand roads and infrastructure. He doesn't need to understand agri and all of that. He is just like a coach. He's been given the mandate to identify the right caliber of people to man the affairs of the various sectors of the economy. And I fell in love with the presentation by taking the responsibility, which my colleague said, because he was in charge of the appointment. But as to whether the appointment he made, I have nothing against Dr. Randiabi. He is a friend that, I respect so much. He's a big brother. But I think, where he is, I'm not calling for his removal, but he needs to open himself, to acquire some sort of level of knowledge in that particular area. For example, his vice or his deputy can be somebody who has some sort of ideas about agribusiness or agricultural economics. Then the two of them, when they actually bring their ideas and then their field or of specialty together, he being a business expert, the person being an agribusiness or agricultural economist, don't you think it would be the best combo for that particular area? But you appoint two people who have no idea, no technical understanding of how the production process of that particular sector is to man the affairs. I don't think we're going to get anywhere. And that is what we've done over the years. I can show you data about the balance sheet of people who don't have technical ideas in that particular sector, heading that particular area, as compared to years that we have people who have some level of technical ideas in that area, managing. And you will see the balance sheet showing. As for the finances will come when you don't take the right decision of resource mobilization. If you are not technically efficient, if you are not resource allocative efficient, if you are not, economic efficient, you're not going to have your finances better. I'm happy he said he's a farmer. He's a farmer because when he became a farmer, he has learned the science behind the production of whatever you see, be it maize or even poultry farming. So finance is different. Finance is just a complementary tool to whatever you are doing as a production manager.
Yeah.
So let's get that particular fact right. business. And I think all of us are speaking from that same angle. But the issue of he disagreeing that we have to get somebody who is in there to help. Otherwise, GFA, if you are not a football person, would you be able to go there and then be a GFA president? Like Kweku and Nyantechi and Alaji, whatever, whoever came out, they have all been football people. Some of them even own football clubs. You understand?
Right.
You can argue that they have not been efficient. We can talk of corruption aside. Corruption is the tool that can bring down whatever, no matter who you appoint over there. We can talk about that later. But in terms of specialty, we cannot disprove that. Otherwise, we can equally say that we can send a communication specialist to go and do a heart surgery. We can't do that.
Right. So I think that, we agree there are two views on it. Your view on us going to attempt to try the semi-autonomous system of management at Cocoa Board, whilst Abel thinks that we should just be thinking of efficiency and not necessarily going in for an industry person. I'm not sure Abel disagrees with the fact that we should employ an industry person, but his position is that, whether industry or not industry, the key aspect should be leadership. And I guess we can all also agree on those general terms. But now let's switch to inflation. The issue of inflation, we've made some remarkable strides on inflation. I think, Dr. Masifi, initially you made some allusion to it. Let me see if my technical team can play in the part of His Excellency speaking to inflation, that we come and look at what that means for us.
Ghana's credibility is restored. Ghana is rising. The heaviest burden we inherited was the very high inflation rate, which was silently eroding every household's purchasing power. It peaked at 54.1% at the end of 2022, and it declined to 23.5% by the end of 2024. Mr. Speaker, we treated this with urgency. Through fiscal consolidation, currency stabilization, and disciplined monetary policy, inflation fell from 23.5% at the end of 2024 to 3.8%. Mr. Speaker, inflation fell from 23.5% at the end of 2024 to 3.8% over 13 consecutive months by January 2026. Mr. Speaker, and very interesting, food inflation, which had been the main driver of the upward pressure on inflation, fell by 26.6 percentage points. Inflation for locally produced goods fell by 22.6 percentage points. Mr. Speaker, these are not just statistics. These translate into the reality of a parent being able to put food on the table for their children. It translates into the reality of businesses thriving and creating opportunities for Ghana's young people.
Right, so we had the President, His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, speak to inflation. Let me start with Abel. What's your take on Ghana's our current state of inflation, and from a policy perspective, what do you think? It looks like we are sustaining it, but again, which I keep saying, people's projection have been that it's also because the IMF is still around. Soon they are going to not be around.
Yeah.
From a policy perspective, what do you think, and how can we sustain this?
Sustainability is key, and I think that listening again to the president yesterday, the overall effect of his speech points to the issue of consolidating, on our gains. We've turned around the corner. We now have to consolidate. We have to keep the fiscal discipline. We have to manage our affairs well so that we get our things right, so that we don't get back to where we are. And I think that it is one of those decisions that led the president to take the decision to cut cocoa prices. because that is fiscal discipline. You have to maintain the momentum that you have. Maybe without IMF, would have, but I think one of the reasons why the president was also able to cut cocoa prices, because this is the second term. I mean, you still have 2 years to election, so there's no election.
He's able to take hard decisions at this stage.
There's no election for you to deal with. So when there are no elections for you to deal with, you are able to take some critical decisions and hope that maybe by the second, third year, there's a turnaround and people would have felt okay. So sustainability is key. And indeed, it's true that inflation eats into the household purchasing power. And since some of the questions on the streets are, okay, inflation is around 3.8%, how does that affect my pocket? How does that buy food for me or something? But what it basically means is that you have steady price increase of goods and services. So prices are not jumping at the shops. They are not jumping when you go to buy things like the way previously it was. I think in 2022, the cascading effect, it was so...
Times where people can go to a shop in the morning, you'll be told that, hold on, we're going to increase prices.
You know, it was so... And, you know, the interesting thing is that when prices are increasing, they increase so fast. But in coming down, they never come down again, you know. Yeah. So prices never come down. So sometimes we misconstrue inflation as prices coming down when inflation is coming down. No, prices are no longer coming down. They are going to maintain the same... at the same position, but this time when increase at exactly when increasing, it doesn't increase at that rate. And we need to, whatever fiscal consolidation measures that the finance minister has been putting on, they have to. I think he's working hand in hand with the Bank of Ghana, and I think there's a good relationship, good synergy between BOG and the Ministry of Finance. The president has to keep on that same tangent. Don't let pressure, because you see, when you enter election year, there will be pressure. Yeah. And once they enter the third year, which is 2027, there will be pressure from every quarter. People want certain things to be done. If not, there's pressure from their constituency, among others. And that is where sometimes governments get into all sort of troubles, and then the spending, they just get on with spending, and then things get wayward. So the president must keep on with the expenditure in terms of the way they are going about it, keep cutting waste. I think yesterday he mentioned that they are introducing a value for money bill in Parliament. Yeah. I don't know if the bill is already in Parliament, but they are seeking to ensure that every contract that of a certain amount that the state will sign, it must pass through Parliament, and there must be value for money on that particular contract, so that we know that the country is not being shortchanged and you can pay. I think he was also talking about tightening procurement conversations around sole sourcing. So
they're going to take out sole except for in emergency situations.
Yes, exceptional situations, which is also very critical, because all this waste, you know, in the system cumulatively, the effect of it is sometimes felt in these macroeconomic indicators of exchange rate ballooning, inflation ballooning, interest rate ballooning, and then you are lost. So we have the government have a responsibility. I think citizens also do have a responsibility to bear with government, that if this is the way that when we take it will help us, then we must also agree with government and say, then keep the momentum, and then also keep fixing other things in the other areas that is very critical, so that we can maintain this lower inflation and also enjoy the ripple effect of it on households. It's very, very important, you know.
All right. Let me turn to Dr. Sifi on inflation. We've had several conversations on this topic before. You were quite optimistic that with some indicators, somewhere last time we had this conversation, you were quite optimistic that with some indicators being put in place by government, the inflation was going to remain quite stable. It looks like it still has been normalized.
Yeah, stable.
What do you have to say?
Okay, so thank you. Last year, I think beginning of last year, in regards to inflation, myself and some colleagues or some research fellows in my institution would use Monte Carlo simulation to project inflation by the close 2025 to 5.2, way before I think IMF became, and also confirmed that. But if you recall, studios, I think one of your Saturday shows or morning shows, weekly morning shows, looking at the trajectory of events that was happening as of last year, somewhere in the middle of last year, I made an assertion that if what we were seeing at that time, consistently continues to the end of 2025, definitely we'll see inflation falling below 5%. And I think what I saw, in fact, before the presentation of His Excellency the President, I had not even checked the latest inflation. I got to know it from his speech. And what I saw more or less testified to the fact that the data we are having or we are playing with currently is real, because whatever assertions that me and my fellow researchers made, we did not make it out of the blue. We were using data at that time to make our forecasting and projections. So inflation coming to this level, my colleague has made very good points about it. Issue of revenue mobilization, tightening, government expenditure regimes, ensuring that monetary policy regimes are also tightened. We streamline procurement processes and all of that. These things indirectly feed into key macroeconomic indicators like the inflation as we are seeing. So I think it's a very good thing. He made mention of the fact that some people complain that they don't show it. Yes, I agree with him. People complain that inflation has gone down and so what. In fact, even the minority leader yesterday, he jokingly said, this, macroeconomic indicators we will chop, something like that. I'm sure he's not the first politician who has ever made that point before, but he made it. Now, first of all, just a little education. When inflation goes down, it does not automatically mean that prices are also going to go down. It tells you that the rate at which prices of goods and services will increase has been slowed down. The only time you see inflation inuring into the reduction, directly inuring to the reduction of price of goods and services, it's when we are having some sort of deflation, in this case, a negative trajectory. You understand? But you can see that in the market, the feeling of the impact is there, but it's not obvious. Maybe we'll come back to that. But the issue here is that Ghana, I think this government has been loose in some aspect of it, of its implementation of policies. You see, economic indicators are a necessary condition, but they are not a sufficient condition. When you implement policies and programs and you get a good economic indicator, that is a necessary condition. But the sufficient condition is to ensuring that the economic indicators that you are seeing fully impact in the life of the people. And I keep talking about regulation. Look, if you look at prices of goods and services, I will take petroleum products. Attakora, do you know why we all enjoy the effect on the exchange rate and even inflation on the prices of petroleum products? It's because there's a regulator that is functioning very, very well. NTA.
Yeah.
They sit down periodically with the OMC and then do calibration and recalibration based on the prevailing current economic conditions. And then out of that, they set the price. You understand? So I keep saying that no economy in this world can call itself a completely free market economy. Every economy, there is regulation of price of goods and services. But it looks as if the food aspect as a country we have failed. Go to Medina Market. I stay at Oyare. Go to Medina Market. Today, you go there, cassava, maybe whatever. I don't know whether let me use plantain because that one I know, 3 fingers of ripe plantain. They can sell it to you maybe 50 cedis. Tomorrow you go, it has been increased. So if you come and tell people that your inflation is 3.8, but so people don't see it fully, then it more or less becomes a deception. And that does not mean that the indicators we are seeing are lies. It's because we are failing to regulate the market. I'm not saying government imposing, but we need to regulate. And in your studios and other platforms, I have proposed the model being used by other economies. I have had the opportunity, with all humility, to travel to China. I've traveled to India, and the scaling system that we are even already using it on some commodities. Meat. If you are going to buy meat, don't you buy 1 kilo, and the 1 kilo price is set. You don't negotiate it. We can do the same thing for other commodities. China, they are doing that. India, I bought banana, and if they were doing that, I bought 1 kilo, and then I paid 5 rupees, or I think 10 rupees or so. So we need to find a way, if not taking what I saw there, hook, line, and sinker. How can government also ensure that qualitatively, because the quantitative, we are seeing the figures, but qualitatively, that will help us see the full impact of whatever we are enjoying in terms of the quantitative aspect, showing us good indicators. What can we do to qualitatively also ensure that we get the full impact of the whole thing? So the figures look very good, and I'm sure if they continue the way they are continuing, we may see further reductions, unless for economic planning purposes, sometimes too low is also not good, and too high is not good. That's why we have equilibrium point in economics.
But Dr. Sivri, in just maybe 2 minutes, can you repropose the solution or the model you proposed some time back on how we can translate these figures into the pockets of the people on the street every day?
Yes, my proposal, I just reiterated now, is the use of the scaling system.
Okay.
I don't think it is too difficult to weigh tomatoes 1 kg and pay for it. So that one maybe where I think Bank of Ghana has that in commodity pricing regulation, whatever committee. I stand to be my colleague that can testify or correct me if I'm wrong. They have commodity I don't see the work of those people. Or maybe their mandate doesn't reach that. Then we need to, review their act and then expand it for them to take charge of that. With that, we can know.
So by the scale, you mean that anything that is bought, we should buy it on a weighing system? Hello, Dr. Siri.
Than that of India. You understand? However, if you go there, the money that if you get 2,000 Ghana cedis here, you are worse off. But if you go there, you have 500 rupees, you are better off. Okay, nominally. I'm not talking in terms of realistic terms, but nominally.
Yeah.
So it tells you that the weighing, in a way, helps, stabilize the system, ensure that whatever we are, successes that we are tracking quantitatively in terms of the economic indicators, qualitatively, that particular regulation system, in terms of introducing the weighing mechanism, will help us actually get the full benefit. And what I am saying, I think one professor at the business school, University of Ghana, has also proposed a similar system. When we do that, look, you will see that the indicators we are seeing here, the relief that we should have gotten is far more than what we are enjoying now. I tell you, you understand? So that proposal, I think government, if they are listening to this particular show, they should make a proposal about it, and see how best we can actually pick up and contextualize it to suit our context and see how best it's going to help us as a country.
Right, absolutely. Thank you very much for your insightful contributions. I'm going to take a very short break here. And when I come back, we are going to look at the last aspect of the State of Nations address for today, which is on health. Government spoke a lot about health infrastructure, but in recent times, we have seen a lot of issues come up on health infrastructure where we have seen some casualties result as of it, and we'll have a conversation there and bring the show to an end. So I'll take a very short breather here. Do not go away.
Z 101.9
100.9 FM, and we're having a review of the State of Nations address. Before we left, I mentioned we're going to have a conversation on healthcare. And Abel, I'll start with you. On the healthcare, His Excellency spoke about a lot of challenges or progress and some challenges made in the healthcare financing. Now, after 69 years of independence, we still have a situation where somebody can be taken to the hospital and there's a no bed issue, where there will not be the administration of even first aid because there's no bed. And I think sadly we've had to, I think he was buried, there was a gentleman who was buried yesterday, and it was even more worrying when I got to find out that even two of his sisters are doctors. And I saw from some other account that his father had a foundation or a mission where he buys beds for some hospitals. Now, let me find out, policy-wise, what can we do about this? Because this is getting a bit too worrying. And in an issue, and I know of one other issue where the guy, was a doctor himself. But when he was saying, no, they didn't know he was a doctor. The same issue, go here, and he had to lose his life. 69 years of independence. Should we still be having this conversation?
Very saddening, and let me use the opportunity to say this morning, extend my condolences to his family. This conversation is very critical.
Yeah.
And from the get-go, I call it a leadership problem across board from all administrations in the Fourth Republic.
Yeah.
Some people have tried to explain it's an attitude problem, it is an issue of maybe there's no blood, there's no this, there's no that. But these are major referral centers. Kolibu, 37, Rage Hospital, let's say even Lekma or Police Hospital. And this is the regional capital, so you can imagine in other regions the situation. So I call it a leadership problem because at the top of the decision making is the upper class who have occupied all the positions. And we must understand that health issues can happen to anybody at any time.
Absolutely, even when you don't expect it.
Exactly. In fact, a former president was chauffeured in a pickup to the 37 when he died. The stories that came were that he was chauffeured
allegedly.
Right, he asked allegedly.
Yes, that's
right.
The stories that came out.
Yes, he referenced
the stories that came out
Yeah.
suggested that he was chauffeured in a pickup. So these are systemic issues, and I think that everybody, those at the leadership, our political class, must take the ultimate blame. I think the speaker wanted to speak that away, wash it away, and say no when they get to the hospital. But what if I've heard some medical doctors who are some of my colleagues describe the situation and explain some of the issues that when a patient with a particular issue is coming into a particular hospital, without a bed, they can't treat the hospital. They can't treat the patient.
Yeah.
Because there might be some issues that they need to attend to. I'm not a medical person, but they explained, there might be some issues where they have to do some infusion and other things, and the person cannot be lying on the floor for that to be done. So if there are no beds and even that there can be beds, but the beds, there are some type of beds that are needed to treat some type of emergencies because they come with a complete set of items. So you can have the physical bed where you can kind of put the person on it, but if they don't have those type of equipment or accessories within the space to treat the patient can come in and still die within the hospital. So it's not just an issue of even having the beds. So if we are having a conversation about hospital equipment that medical doctors don't have access to, hospital beds and all of those issues, who takes responsibility? Who is in charge of approving funding? It's Parliament. Who is in charge of shaping policy decisions concerning healthcare? It's the executive. So why should medical doctors be taking responsibility for something that leadership over the years have neglected? The political, when they are not feeling well, they fly to other countries. If your healthcare system is robust enough, why don't you go there? Why don't you attend those ones? You know, and then the simple things that should be done so that citizens at least can have some reprieve. That one too you are not doing. And when it happens and we want to talk, then they say, no, let's blame the medical doctors who were on duty for negligently. Meanwhile, the same medical doctors, if they receive the patient and attend to the patient, and the patient end up dying because they did not have certain things to treat the patient, they will also be held liable. Yeah. You see? So I think that we must, apportioning the blames are enough. At least there's an administration that is, this morning I was reading the special aide to the president was mentioning a similar story, 2024, where one of their communication officers had an accident and she had to personally make calls to people in Tamale Teaching Hospital before they could attend to the person. So it's not a today issue. It is
and
not
that shouldn't be the case. That somebody must make a call.
Make a call and things.
Yeah.
You know, so it's I don't know what policy government is going to look at, but I think that in Ghana, too many times we talk about policy. I think we have so much policies in the healthcare space to take care of many of these issues. The issue that we have in Ghana is implementation challenges, the implementation problem, where you build a policy from ground zero, go through all stakeholder engagement and things, and then at the end of the day, it is left on the shelf. Nobody attends to it.
But we had this, was there Agenda 111 or so to get hospitals? What happened to that?
I said, if we go into that, then maybe people will say we are doing politics. But that is why I said that it's a leadership problem.
Yeah.
That's why I said we must blame, because they have, look at Agenda 111 hospital, for example. The amount of money that was spent starting hospitals all over the country, when we could have channeled those monies and built 10 or 20 at a time. And then you continue. But because of politics again, we started them, dotted across the country.
And left them.
Up to today, none of them are still usable. Because apparently I think about 4 or something are complete, just the infrastructure. But the items that are needed for the hospital to operationalize are not there. So who do you blame for some of these things? Who takes the responsibility? So I think that is why I call it a leadership problem. It's not an issue of policy or what have you. No. I don't think it's an issue of lack of policy measures or whatever. It's just that too many times in this country, we just leave things to God. We just leave things to who do you know? Call this person. I'm sure if the gentleman was conscious, he would have known who to call.
Or he'd have told them, this my sister, call her.
Call this person.
And would have attended to her. So then my problem will come in that, isn't this discrimination? If let's say, so my sister is doctor, so, is that doctor so son, brother, then quickly they attend to him. Which shouldn't be the case. Everybody's entitled to
but
this.
But I think also,
right.
we since the conversation came up with this issue of calling and doctors can make exceptions and things. I think that is also one of the things that it reveals about the healthcare system, that if a call can come through and you can find a bed for somebody,
then you can do for everybody.
Then you can do for everybody. And I think Professor Titus Bayua explained some of those things where, sometimes somebody is about finishing a shift, he doesn't want to admit a new patient so that it will be something on him, so he wants to run away and all those things. So I think with that, the Ghana Health Service have a lot of work to do. Maybe sit with the Ghana Medical Association and the junior doctors and all that. Let's look at the challenges that, because the medical officers are also facing a lot of challenges within the space. There was a forum about 3 days ago where I've seen some articulation on some of these issues. They also have genuine challenges that they're experiencing. We must look at those genuine challenges vis-a-vis the systemic issues and the leadership issues that we are discussing, and then see how we can have motivated health sector workers who attend to their work. As we are speaking, I think it's just recently that the government have reached an agreement with nurses and midwives on some of their arrears to be paid starting from April, May, June and things. There are also issues of welfare. There are issues of motivation, lack of motivation, because people are there, they feel that their services are being taken for granted.
Yeah.
And so the motivation to attend to people, to save lives, is not there. And sometimes we must admit it, even in our own small workspaces, sometimes when you feel that certain things are not going well, you see your lukewarm attitude towards work is there. You don't even go to work
drops
early. You report, you give complaints, you find an excuse somewhere. It happens. And they are also human beings. So we don't expect that they don't have feelings and they cannot do that. But the only difference is that they are working with human lives.
Yeah.
And when you are working with human lives, your approach must be very different. And that is why I think that government approach also towards the healthcare system must be very different.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Thank you. Dr. Sifi, I'll just turn to you for your comments on the health sector, maybe in just 1 minute. And also that will be your wrapping words.
Okay. Thank you. First of all, I agree with my colleagues in the studio, the health sector has always been crippled with lack of proper leadership. And I must say that one of my disappointments in the presentation, during the presentation of the president, is his silence on this particular matter. He just, at the health sector, he started reading the policies and what he's doing. But just as in the security sector, when he got there, he was able to sympathize with the parents of the lost of the girls that lost their lives at the Elwak Stadium. I was expecting that this issue, I'm sure, has come to his attention. At least he would have made a reference and then sympathize with the family of this unfortunate patient. However, I don't think I have anything different to say about what my colleague has said. But what I will add is that, look, at Accra, we have social service and economic service. I mean, every country. We have social service and economic service. And areas like security and health fall under social service. I agree 500% with my colleague's point about the welfare. Look, I agree with him on the grounds that we are all human beings. We have bills to pay. We need to also eat and then have transportation to and from our workplace. If I can work for several months and my pay has not come, that will actually demoralize me in terms of my activeness towards, in terms of the positivity of my attitude towards the work I'm doing. So I agree. But on the other side of the coin, the health sector workers must also understand that their sector borders or fall under social service. So in any circumstances, the social consciousness behavior ought to come first, irrespective of whatever is going on as far as their welfare is concerned.
Yeah.
This thing that they are talking about. Look, I've had a first-hand experience at Legon University of Ghana Medical Center. I will not go into details, but because of the due to time, I was with the we were going for a meeting, and he's older than me. Right.
Hello, Dr. Sibi. I think.
My brother, could you believe that when he got there, he actually came to normalcy before we took him? He walked into the ward. He was given a bed, and apparently he was supposed to take his BP medication. He didn't take it in the morning because he did not eat before stepping out. Meanwhile, he had to eat before taking the medication. So his thinking was that we would have finished the meeting, he eat and take the medication, and the unfortunate situation happened. So when we got there and he was a bit okay, they gave him that. I went to get food for him. He took his medication. They claimed they were doing some sort of test and what have you. We were there around 1 p.m. and we left at 9 p.m. Could you imagine that the so-called test that they were doing, they never brought any report, nothing, but just for lying there for that period of time, he was charged 1,500 to pay.
Wow.
So there are, and I have evidence. If I were to be in your office, I would have shown you the receipt of the man. And we could have also engaged him on phone for him to testify himself. I had a serious exchange of words with the medical doctor, a young lady. And the lady, even the way the kind of words he used and all of that, other patients got angry at her. So I think the issue is both sides of the coin. We need to ensure that our medical personnel are well taken care of, not dispute of the fact. But the medical personnel also should know that their services are essential. That is why they fall under the social services sector. So they need to find a way. Look, the ambulance that took this hit and run patients to them, that even I'm told that the ambulance driver was saying that if you don't have bed, please come and attend to him in the ambulance. The ambulance that was bed there, which they used to give first aid, that they saw the doctors or the medical personnel over there did not heed to this call, and they had to move this person, and then on the way he had to lose his life.
Yeah.
So I think, as my colleague said, because of time, I will not go into much detail, maybe another time.
Right.
We need to have, as a nation, a dispassionate discussion. Leadership has a role to play, but the personnel also have a role to play. It's just like a police officer saying that I'm not paid well, and so if an armed robber is in your house raping your wife and your daughter and killing you, we will not come. Call another person. My brother, how will you feel? So we need to, as a nation, it's because sometimes lack of jobs make people take professions that they don't really have that passion for. All these things we need to, there's a political economy issue, there is a psychological issue, there are social issues, cultural issues. All these things come into play. But for want of time, I will rest here and say that I agree with my colleague, leadership. But what I will add also is that the medical personnel should also appreciate the fact that their services fall under the social sector and the services are essential. So no matter the circumstances, there is a course in appropriate technology, making do with what the limited resources you have. Find a way to use the little resources you have at your disposal to attend the person. If you do your best and the person loses his life, at least there was an attempt of offering a medical care rather than what we're experiencing now. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Felix Lare-Silfi. And many thanks also to Abel Amadiok for spending your Saturday morning with us and helping us dissect the State of Nations address. Not forgetting Dr. Ivan Nunu also, who joined us briefly to share his thoughts on the subject. Thank you very much, and we are truly grateful for your time and your insightful contributions. And many thanks to our cherished listeners who spent their Saturday morning with us in reviewing the State of Nations address. In as much as we can see that some good progress has been made, there's still a lot of work to be done. And we're hoping that the government is not going to renege on its efforts, but is going to take this just as the beginning ground and help ensure that the reset or the fixed agenda of Ghana is established and it will also overflow to the African continent. My name is Kweku Attakora Dwomoh, and until we come your way next week with another episode of The Focus, always remember to do that which will make Ghana proud of you. Have a very good weekend and a very good week, and God bless us all.
101.9 FM.